The Kentucky Small Business Development Center is a statewide, nationally accredited program that provides no-cost, confidential business coaching and training services. Whether you're just getting started or are ready to expand, we have the tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. We're part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more about how the Kentucky SBDC can serve you, please visit KentuckySBDC.com or email us at info@KentuckySBDC.com. You can also reach us by calling 888-414-7232. Thank you for joining today's webinar. The chat feature is available for you to ask questions and interact with today's speaker. Please take a moment to introduce yourself and where you are watching from today.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Small Business Development Center. We're one of 17 centers in the Kentucky Small Business Development Center network. So welcome today. If today's your first day and join us, then I think you'll be really happy with what we have coming up today. And if you're a long-time viewer, and thanks for coming back again. Again, as always, if you wouldn't mind, just to make sure that you can hear us and see us and everything's working, just look to the bottom of your screen. If you just hover your cursor down there, a little toolbar will pop up and you'll see the chat feature. If you just hit that, and just why don't you pop in there and tell us your name and where you're watching from, and everything's working okay. So we'll wait just a second as people settle in and say hello. Also, as we go through today, there's Amy. Hey, Amy. Amy's here in Louisville. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Alan at Kerms. I just saw Alan last week at the Family Business Awards ceremony. So good to see you again, Alan. Heather and Dan. Bill Reynolds, how are you? Good to see you, Bill. So yeah, we get people from all over the world sometimes. So it's really interesting to watch the chat and see where everybody's kind of popping in from. So welcome. I know you guys have probably experienced this because I have quite a bit, where you show up at a networking event and you think you really want to make some impact and find some people to talk to about your products or services. And it ends up that everybody at that same event is doing the same thing, and there's no one there that can make a decision on your product or service. So, one of the biggest tricks and the hardest thing to do is, how do you get to the right person to actually make make your sell and make your pitch? Yeah, I was just thinking, I had another experience where I worked the contact for a month or two, only to find out he had to go ask his boss whether we could go forward or not. And then that was like starting all over again, and what a waste of time that was. So after thinking about that, and I think sales here is on everybody's mind all the time, I asked Amy Rudy to come back. She's with Impact Sales Systems. She is a sales and marketing expert. She can really help companies move the needle on their sales and figuring out these new strategies and ways to do that. And so I've asked Amy to come and talk about that. How do you get in front of the right people that can make the decision? So Amy, welcome. Good to see you again.
Great. Thanks for having me on again. I love doing this kind of work. And you're right, it is one of the toughest challenges in selling. Everybody knows they should be in front of a decision maker, but daggone if that's not just the most elusive, it's right behind Bigfoot sometimes for people.
Exactly. Well, Amy, why don't you just share your screen and let's just jump right in here and get going.
All right, on it. So can you see the bigger presentation?
There you go. Looks good.
Right. Perfect. Okay, very good. So again, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Amy Rudy with Impact Sales Systems. I work with business owners and their sales teams on the behaviors behind selling. And one of those behaviors is gaining access to decision makers. So great products can sit on the shelf for forever if we can't get somebody to actually make a decision. One of the things for those that do know me is I always focus on the behaviors behind selling. The behaviors are the things that we can control. I can't control anybody else, but I can control me. So as we go through this discussion today or presentation today. And if you look in the archives at anything else I've ever talked about, I always focus on the behaviors that we as salespeople and we as business owners can control. So again, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Ryan, for having me and let me be part of this webinar series. But today I want to share a lot more about what I know about gaining access to decision makers. This isn't new news. Again, we all know we should be in front of decision makers because they make decisions. And most often when a deal goes sideways, it's because someone we've never met has a different opinion about something we've never discussed. Does that make sense? So furthermore, the decision maker can feel elusive. I just alluded to that, but their title, the decision maker's title, may not be owner or president. They have gates, there are passwords to those gates, but ways to gain access. Sometimes the gatekeeper doesn't even know the password to the actual decision maker. Today, we're going to dig into how do we get better access, and it's up to us. How do we do that in a meaningful way? So I'm going to share secrets that I've learned about how to shorten the sales cycle by getting to the people who own the problem, control the budget, and foot the bill for their issues. Okay, let's see. All right, I feel like it could be a DJ. All right, so it's worth repeating. Shortening the sales cycle by getting to the people who own the problem, control the budget, and are footing the bill for their losses. In other words, the problems that we solve, there's a cost and a loss associated with that. You're going to hear me hit that a lot today. But who owns the problem, who owns the budget, and who is having to live with the cost and the losses associated with it? Any miss on any one of those threes mean that we're risking that a decision won't be made in our favor or may not be made at all. So the people who own and control the budget, it could be one person that has all three of those responsibilities. Could be three different or even three different groups inside the entire organization. So part of our job as salespeople is to better understand who owns the problem. They have a decision to make. Who owns and controls the budget? They have a decision to make. Who is footing the bill for the problem right now as it exists? They have a decision to make. So one thing that is a side note here that I wanted to share with you is that make sure that your CRM, your contact relationship management system, or your sales pipeline tool, it differentiates the power and authority of the people you're working with in an organization. So make sure those things are in there, because sometimes it's just names and phone numbers, and people that are involved on your side may not understand who is responsible for what. But I got to check out at least all three of those. Decision makers are often thought of those people who are deciding to buy. Please know there are decision makers who will decide if they believe the issue is important enough to prioritize in the budget. Those people are also known as veto card holders. We want to make sure you can get in front of the folks that hold a veto card on your deal. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. One is decision makers. Bottom line is they actually do want to meet with you. We're going to talk about that. Secondly, why is it so difficult to get in front of them? There's some very basic information to understand why we are the ones making it so difficult. Thirdly, we're going to get into what do they need? What do they need from us? What do they need inside their business? Those are the things we should be discussing. And then you got to be ready, because what the heck are you going to do if you actually do get in front of them? So we're going to make sure you've got a plan around those things. And then we're going to talk about some of the tools of that conversation. Again, as Dave mentioned, if you've got questions, he's going to monitor that, interrupt me. I am focusing forward and the chat's over here. So anyway, Dave will let me know if there's something we need to discuss, but please let me know and I'll answer anything I can. Got a lot to cover and we'll go pretty quick. So gaining access, right? They have problems to solve. They're facing new challenges that they can't seem to eliminate. So let's go on the premise that decision makers want to meet with you. And why is that? Because they want to root out problems and losses in their business. They have problems to solve, okay? Those issues are things that maybe they're facing, they're new. It's something that they haven't faced before. Maybe it's a post-pandemic change for them. Maybe it's a pace of growth. they're facing new challenges they can't seem to get their arms around or be able to completely root out of their business. And make no bones about it, there's a cost and there are losses associated with those problems. They want to talk to people who can solve those issues, but we have to understand them first. What they don't want is they don't want to waste their time getting sold to or listening to people who want only to be able to sell them something. So let's be clear. Decision makers want to meet with you. They want to meet with you to root out issues. What they don't want to do is get sold to. And I could absolutely finish this whole conversation with just by saying, here endeth the lesson. There's nothing else to talk about. So the getting sold to means a feeling for the prospect that the salesperson doesn't fully understand their issue. It's unique to them. We might have seen it 1,000 times, but they don't know that we understand it in their business. I can't tell you how often a business owner comes into my office and tells me that I don't understand, we're unique. And I'm like, great, tell me how you're unique. And that's when they're starting to be part of making sure that we understand what they need solved and why it's an issue for them. Sometimes getting sold to for them can feel like it's a one-sided features or benefits conversation about the product, meaning that the salesperson is coming in with features or benefits, and it's not a conversation about the problem that needs to be solved. The third thing that can give you that indication that somebody feels like they're getting sold to or somebody's trying to sell them something is that the prospect may not even understand how the solution fixes the problem as they understand it. So when we come in with features and benefits in what we do, the decision maker may actually find themselves confused as to how does that actually attack the problem? Or if it looks and smells like what they've tried in the past that didn't work, it's just way too easy for them to discount or disqualify that. So let's start with who we are in this. In a sales role, please know you are a decision maker. Not are you a decision maker, you are a decision maker. Decisions that we make include who we work with. I get to decide that. You get to decide that. Whether we can solve their issue. We know that better than our prospect. Whether we're making a decision whether we can actually make money doing that work. We make a decision whether we're a good fit, or beg your pardon, whether they're a good fit for what we do. If they're not a good fit, square peg in a round hole, it's going to cost you more money to do that work. You might even jeopardize your reputation, certainly your relationship. So we have decisions to make. Our prospects have to validate for us. And in order for them to do that, it requires an interview, not a presentation. So again, deciding what client to take on, that's a big decision. Qualifying them with the right questions. Because what's going to happen at the end of the day is that whoever you bring on board, you're going to have to live with them. You're going to have to do the work and you're going to have to make sure you know how to make money. So recognize that in your sales process, you are in fact a major decision maker. Okay, so let's talk about why so many fall short, so many sales efforts, okay? Owners and sales managers expect us to be in front of, get in front of decision makers. We hear it all the time. Who are you presenting to? Well, there's no decision makers in there. Or do you have the decision makers all tied up? Yeah, sure do, right? But because we're expected to be in front of decision makers, do you know who decision makers want to meet with? Other decision makers, right? So get equipped to be in front of a decision maker. Know what a decision maker expects to discuss and get answered. So this isn't features and benefits. This isn't what our products are capable of. This is about them, to get equipped, to present yourself as if you're a decision maker sitting in front of a decision maker. Decision makers, business owners, they don't want to sit in front of salespeople. They want to sit in front of people who can make a decision. Okay, so often what I'll find is that owners and leaders don't equip their salespeople to be in that seat, meaning that they can't negotiate, meaning above the floor, there's floor level pricing, but to be able to negotiate within that space. So they can't negotiate. Ill-prepared salespeople can't shut down or withdraw from a deal. So they keep chasing it until somebody else tells them to eliminate it. They can't make decisions on timing, or those salespeople may not have access to information that the prospect or that other business owner, decision maker, needs. So those salespeople might have a lack of visibility to costs, to our production capacity, to timing, things that could interrupt what our internal stakeholders might need in order to be successful, because sales can sometimes get stuck into a silo where they're only knowing features and benefits and doing some research on the customer, but not what we fix and not how our internal stakeholders actually operate and what they need to be successful. In fact, a solidly prepared salesperson should have both technical expertise and business awareness. You know, many salespeople are only equipped to show and tell, not interview and negotiate. I don't mean giving them carte blanche, or that we don't even need carte blanche as salespeople, but certainly the authority to qualify for an interview, to hold firm on pricing, to ask business owner level questions, impactful questions to a prospect. So here's the clue that might tell you whether you need to develop your salespeople or you as a salesperson should demand more development around the business awareness you may need to have for your prospects. So here's the clue. If the owner of your business has to get pulled in to close the deal or be customer facing, then the salesperson is in a diminished role and likely needs more training and development about their own organization or how the customer's business operates. So see, when somebody, quote, above you has to get pulled in, there's some training and development that should be available to you. So speaking of which, I have to say this, and I run into a little friction on it from time to time, but I have to say it. And it's an interview. It's not a pitch. You know, do you know what a pitcher's job is? Baseball pitcher. Its job is to trick the batter and try to convince them to swing at something that either isn't there or isn't what they want it to be. And so it's just make sure you know whether you're pitching something at someone or if you're actually interviewing them. And I encourage you to know how to run an interview. Okay, that's about as delicate as I can be about that. I have a lot of opinions. So it's about impact. People don't change because of their problems. They change because of the impact of their problems. Soak that up for a second. Okay, it's actually the foundation of my entire organization and why we do what we do. People don't change because of the problems they have. They change because of the impact of the problems they have, how it's affecting their business, how it's affecting profitability, their ability to grow. Is the problem, the impact of the problem, chasing away customers or making it cost more for them to produce their work? Okay, the impact of their problem. Decision makers are dealing with the impact of their problems. We have to understand what that is. That's the conversation. Know it and be prepared to talk about it. All right, so let's dig into that. Okay, so, you know, to make sure that you've held conversations with your prospects, right? The conversations you've had with your customers are going to closely marry to your prospects, meaning the things you've already solved for your customer. That's going to tell you what you should be talking to your prospects about. So what are the changes they're facing this year? It could be the same for different vendors. How can we help them plan for what we do for them? In other words, how do we help them plan for the new business that's coming at them? How do we help them plan for the amount of inventory they're going to have for their growth? How do we help them plan for the new projects that are coming their way? How do we, as an organization, me representing it as the salesperson, how do we help them plan for growth? You know, a lot of businesses are facing new problems. It says it right there on your screen. The real problems they face now. In the past 2 years, the real problems have changed for many business owners. And so make sure we're not making assumptions based on old data, old conversations. What are they facing right now? And know what you fix. It'll change the conversation. Okay, there is often a path to the decision makers. Know those gates. So know, where's the problem that you solve typically show up in the business? That's the person that owns the problem, right? Who owns the budget? Well, where is that problem starting to show up in costs and losses? And then at the end of the day, footing the bill is somewhere in the organization where those costs and losses are starting to create changes in their budget, what they can afford to spend money on, how much money they make at the end of the day. Know and understand how to measure the costs and losses of how they're forced to operate today. They're forced to operate today because they're dealing with an issue that you could root out, you could solve. Okay, so those things have likely changed in the past few years, and possibly even they're facing new things in the past few months. Okay, oh, here's an example. I've got a story here written in front of me, so excuse me for reading it. We just learned of, was working with a client, we just learned of a competitor who chose to not renew a particular certification, okay? By understanding that the competition didn't renew a certification, that led to a major new client who requires that certification. So that client came on board and was interested, can you certify this? And we're like, yeah, we can. We learned that we had a competitor that is no longer certified to do this certain level of work. So here's the question. Now that I know that, shouldn't I be digging in to figuring out who are the prospects who are most affected by a competitor who can no longer provide a requirement? Okay, it's kind of a global issue, a global statement, but think about if you have a competitor that has stopped doing something, they've orphaned a group of their former customers, an area that you may be able to pick up. So when you're hearing those types of issues, are you having a conversation to understand how that lack of, in this case, certification is affecting your prospect's ability to operate? And that's where my next conversation goes, because decision makers need to solve that problem, not necessarily look for a new provider. You know, if you're talking to folks and you're understanding that there are manual processes, it's not about solving the manual process. That's not what a decision maker wants to talk about. The issue is that manual processes lead to mistakes. Mistakes cost money or cause a loss of a customer. So what do you think they really need to fix? The manual process, or do they need to fix the cost and losses associated with the manual process? Business owners, decision makers want to talk about the costs and losses you're going to root out of their business, not automating a manual process. Okay, they would delegate that to someone else. All right, yeah, so we'll keep on rolling. Hopefully these things are making sense. It's so different to be recorded and know if there's thoughts rolling around in somebody's head. Okay. So gaining access to a decision maker, it's going to start with your commercial. What do you say when you're given that opportunity to meet with someone or stand in front of someone or meet someone new at a networking event or being introduced to someone by a strategic partner, somebody who is can recognize when those issues that you solved are apparent in their customers? Okay, so it starts with your commercial, the compelling reasons prospects come to you. That's their reasons, not ours. That has nothing to do with our deliverable, has everything to do with the problems they're facing. So one is understanding the compelling reason of why, the compelling reasons prospects come to you. Secondly, the issues normally being experienced when people decide to work with you, right? They're deciding to work with you because they have those issues. Recognizing the impact of their problem when people decide to work with you, okay? So that's knowing your existing customers well enough and understanding why they chose to buy from you, what was the issue, and what was the impact of that issue when they chose to work with you. And then a question for them to be able to opt in or excuse themselves from the conversation. So when we talk about having a solid commercial, a way to introduce yourself, right? It has to do with the reasons other decision makers decided to work with you. Don't make it easy for them to either duck or redirect the conversation. Leading with your deliverable often makes it too easy for them to say, we don't need it, we already have it, send me some information. That's the easy duck, dodge, dip and dive or whatever. And so if our deliverable is leading the conversation, decision makers don't want to talk about that. It's not, they have other people to deal with the deliverable. They own the problem. So in fact, anybody who asks for information ahead of taking your call. Like, no thanks, just send me some information, or that sounds great, tell me more about it, but send it to me electronically. If we're sending information ahead of us and ahead of a phone call, that likely means that the prospect doesn't fully understand the problems or the impacts of the issues you address. They only know that deliverable piece, a software package. They only know marketing. They only know that they need to build out their database or be able to weigh and measure something. They certainly don't understand the caliber of conversation that you have to know if in fact you can actually solve their problems. In other words, the decision we have to make. I'm betting that they are also expecting a salesperson wanting to get time to give a presentation. If they're asking for information ahead, my guess is they probably think all you're looking for is time on their calendar to give them a presentation. Can't be it. Got to have a conversation. So, they don't have to think to give you a stock answer. Those first things I just mentioned, we don't need, thanks anyway, have a great day. And that's for the nice ones that actually say have a great day. But they don't even have to think to do that. As salespeople, we have to make them think. And then it's a fair fight. If they don't have to think to respond because we look like and smell like and sound like every other conversation that came at them, they're pros at avoiding conversations with salespeople. They seek conversations with other decision makers or people who can solve problems for them. Okay. So while you're at it, get rid of any kind of diminishing or self-centered language, like I was hoping, or I wanted to, just checking in. Please don't do that. Those are diminishing words. I'm calling in order to, not I was hoping. There is no hope in sales. There's a whole presentation about that. The reason I'm calling is it's possible that I might be able to help you with an issue. Could I share with you why I'm calling, and you decide where we go from there? They're still in control, and they're talking to somebody who is also making a decision. All right, so again, I'm going to restate it. May I tell you why I'm calling, and you decide where we go from there. That's how you start a conversation, not about your deliverable. Okay, next thing is it's not about you, meaning no feature or benefit was ever built if it didn't solve an issue. All right, so think about that for a minute. It had no value unless it was fixing a problem, right? It's about fixing the problem. Features and benefits only add value to your customers. It does not add value to your prospects. The problem is what they are owning. Prospects aren't living with the fix, they're living with the problem. So take any feature and benefit you have, 2-day turnaround, award-winning service, fresh ideas. Those are all features and benefits, right? Focus on the issues those things solve, the issues you typically see when a prospect comes to you. If someone is coming to you because they need fresh ideas, guess what they're getting today? Stale ideas. So I'd rather talk about the stale ideas and what that's keeping them from doing, as opposed to here's my new fresh idea. Okay. Prospects and decision makers will often listen to the fix, listen to the features or benefits. That doesn't mean that they still understand or even own the problem. Start with the problem. All right. It's let me move this out of the way, excuse me. So, one more time, here we go, right? You're deciding whether to continue to pursue business. That's your decision. They have to qualify for that. If you disqualify them or get stuck behind a gatekeeper, my question is, would their decision maker even be aware of their problems? Would their decision makers understand the related costs and losses? Would their decision maker even know there's a solution? You. Ask the question so they discover why they need to talk to you. Know what those conversations are. We're going to dig into that here following up, okay? So it's pretty basic. Here's what we do. We all only sell one of two things. That's it. It's that simple. If you're in personal services, there's quality of life for consumers. That's kind of the asset piece, and there is the cost to run their household. In business to business, it is costs and losses, right? Revenue and expense to operate the business. Okay, so that hasn't changed. I talked about this in the last session, in fact, but it is a key part of our sales process. I hope it's a big part of yours. if somebody is going to buy from us, it's because we can either help them generate more revenue or lower their cost to operate their business. That's simple. That's the only reason they would buy from us. For a consumer, I just mentioned what that might be, that quality of life or peace of mind, things that are invaluable to them. So the question is, and what I'd like you to jot down if you're taking notes here, what do you sell? Do you sell increased revenue, helping them attract new customers or get more volume in? Or are you lowering their cost to operate, meaning whatever the work effort is for them to do their work, the cost of production, the materials that go into that production? Are you attracting new business, or are you lowering the cost to run their business? So know which one of those, and then double check in your commercial. Do you even talk about those things? In other words, the people that come to me need to lower their cost of operations because ... So start with a conversation about costs and losses, problems and impacts, not solutions. Decision makers are ultimately responsible for their costs and losses. They are responsible for the impacts that exist with unresolved problems. Is the problem you solve affecting their revenue, or is the problem you solve affecting their cost to operate? Take a look. All right, now, email is a sandbox of the devil. I've talked about it. I don't even know how many times in my life. But from a business standpoint, your customers, prospects, strategic partners, people who can make introductions for you, are more accessible and available than ever. They may not be more accessible, but they are more available to us right now because they are working to solve problems. What I'm recommending here is you got to pick up the phone. That's how they become more available. Are you going to maybe leave some voicemails, hit some reasons, but the conversation and the bullet point you can leave on that voicemail, and we'll talk more about how to leave an effective voicemail in a moment, but those are the reasons. They have problems to solve, and unless you're getting into the top of that plate of the problems they're looking to solve, don't expect them to spend much time on it. So pick up the phone. Email isn't going to get it done. I know that some roles are vacated, and that they have escalated things within an organization, but phone, email, text, LinkedIn, mail, but it needs to be compelling conversation, whichever route you take in. I just would prefer it to not be email as an initial conversation, but it's definitely not a check-in. If you nobody has time for a check-in right now, especially if they're scrambling and organizations are already overstretched. When you do get a hold of them, see what their adjusted plan is for the current environment. See what they're doing now based on the supply chain issues you know about. See what they're doing now as a result of labor issues they may be facing now. See what they're doing as it relates to new issues or new policies or regulations that they may be facing. The question is, how can you help them? Not if you can help them. How can I help you with X? Okay. I want you to build relationships that matter. Their focus may have changed. So don't assume that the milk route conversation still even matters to people. Their focus may have changed. Start with a question. Tell me what's happening now as it relates to this. What is different since this time last year for you guys, if you don't mind me asking? Many times it can start with the conversation back to the commercial that would suggest, when I talk to business owners right now, I'm hearing this, this, and this. How are you guys dealing with that? Okay. I'm hearing a lot of nobody answers the phone. Nobody's calling me back. Well, you're right. They're not going to. Don't plan on it. It's probably because the reason those things aren't happening is it's because they're not hearing a compelling reason to call you back. In fact, I was working with a group of salespeople. It's been a couple of months ago, but someone complained that their prospects don't have any urgency right now. It is not true. They are showing no urgency for what that guy happened to be bringing to the table. Okay, those people, their prospects, are facing new emergencies and new urgency responses that they're going to have to come up with. They've got new urgencies that are creating new demands, or pardon me, are coming from new demands on them. Okay, so things might have changed for them. Another thing is, I had that same group, it might have been the same guy, said that he was pretty slow right now. And I'm like, holy cow, I think I'm going to lose my mind. There's so much competitive information, customer information, vendor supplier information that we as salespeople have to capture. All of those things are going to add in our ability to talk to a decision maker, gain access to a decision maker. Your peers that are already working with the decision maker in an organization are going to know how to introduce you to that decision maker within an organization. Quit starting at the bottom. Come right in where the door is open to solving a problem. Oh, and by the way, do you know who answers the phone? Salespeople. You know why? Because we're salespeople. We've got to answer the phone. So a great way to gain access into an organization in a meaningful way is to get in contact with their salespeople. You know, a salesperson, as a salesperson, understand what's the relationship you have with your current customer salespeople. Sometimes I see a tremendous gap that we only have contact with our buyers, but not necessarily with the salespeople that are utilizing whatever good or service, you know, is coming at them in the deliverable. So what type of business are those salespeople chasing or looking to replace right now? Those are conversations that with our existing customers can help us grow, perhaps introducing us into their other customers or their prospects. When you're looking at your prospects salespeople, are they having to quote longer lead times? Are they dealing with frustrated customers? If your prospects salespeople are struggling in some way, well, it's quite possible your deliverable would improve the organization that would allow them to sell better. I'm hoping that makes sense, right? Are they struggling with some engineering insight? Perhaps that is something that you can bring to the table for them. I'm not digging on salespeople. Gosh, I love them. As owners, for those of you that on this call that are an owner, we have to work with our salespeople. If you're in a sales role, you have to ask for help from your leaders. What's the information your organizational leaders need? What can they share about business insights right now? What's different for our organization that might transfer into conversations with other business owners? At the end of the day, please pick up the daggone phone. I can't express that enough. So another great way to gain access to business owners is introductions. Cold calling in, it's tough. If you don't have anything else working for you, that's what you got to spend your time doing and knock on that door. But strategic partners, those are people who actually share the same target you do, the same buyer, the same type of company. My question is, you probably have relationships with people that you would consider a strategic partner. My question to you is inspect it and see, do they know how to introduce you now versus what it might have looked like a year ago or 2 years ago, right? What's changed in your business? What's changed for your prospects? Do they know how to introduce you? For your strategic partners, what new business do they need? It might have shifted for them, right? What is their plan for the next year? Having conversations in order to generate introductions for your through your strategic partners to new prospects, new business. 4 to 5 strategic partner meetings that are meeting 6 to 12 times a year, so every other month or monthly, right? If you had 4 to 5 strategic partners and each one of those could introduce you to one person a quarter, twice a year, or maybe even every month, every other month, right? If those strategic partners can make meaningful introductions, that's a lot of new business. And it eliminates those non-producing networking activities or, gosh knows, cold calls. Please don't be waiting for the phone to ring. Who do your clients see as advisors? Those are the people that should be your strategic partners. So go back to your existing customers. Who do they look to when they're making decisions? Is it a center of influence, whether it's their attorney or CPA? Is it the leader of their, electric company that's making sure that all the lights stay on all the time? Or is it a recruiter that they're using, right? Who do your clients see as advisors? And ask your clients to introduce you to them. Doesn't cost them anything to do it. And actually, they might feel good about introducing you to somebody else, feeling like the two of you might be a great connection. And then, you share prospects with those folks. Go get them. Okay. So again, when you're getting to know new strategic partners, part of gaining that access to a decision maker is getting a good, solid introduction. Well, if you're hiring a strategic partner into your sales plan, interview them. Interview them like they're a new prospect. Do they understand what you fix? Do they see the problems in their customers or problems in prospects they've talked to? Do they see those problems that you fix? Who are they bringing in on those conversations right now? So when they recognize an issue that you actually solve, I'd like to know how they're solving it today. What's the recommendation they're making? And then by all means, reciprocate. Okay, now we're going to take a look at, goodness gracious, I'm just talking right along. All right, you've earned it. That's a good part of this conversation, right? When you're working with a client, when was the last time you asked your existing clients specifically for introductions to people who might benefit from a conversation with you? Not people who need what you do, not people who could buy from you, people who would benefit from a conversation with you. That's going to create a stronger introduction. Your existing clients, very often they'll know peer companies, non-competing. They're not going to want to necessarily stick you into a competitor. But it could be their former employer for their role. It could be their suppliers. It could be their next door neighbor. Okay. But when's the last time? Inspect that on your own. Remind them of the issues they faced prior to working with you. So who might be dealing with those issues? Not who needs a new website, who needs this type of marketing, who needs more, widgets. It's the problems you face. That's what I would remind our customers, what they used to be facing with us: longer turnaround, a lack of inventory, the creativity that we're now working on together. Who else do you think I should be talking to? Okay. Your current customers, especially if they're decision makers, right? They are involved in CEO roundtables. They're involved in peer groups. They are active, likely, in trade organizations. They're meeting with their suppliers. They're meeting with their customers. They might do speaking engagements. They probably sit on boards of some sort. They know people who are just like them. Okay. The use of LinkedIn can't be underestimated. Use it. Post meaningfully. Respond and share meaningful things. Tag people you compliment when you're making a reference point. That kind of traffic is a marketing activity that will then lead to a little bit of softening of the ground. Know who is responding to your posts. Take a look at the analytics. At what company are they from? Are those doors you've been knocking on in the past? Holy cow, it might be making a difference. People in that organization are looking at what I'm posting. So if you see a target on LinkedIn, figure out who you're mutually connected to. Those folks can likely make an introduction. If they have that level of a relationship, pick up the phone and call them. That your familiar point of contact can certainly help bridge the gap to a second tiered contact for you. But if you see that contact, look at who they're responding to. Look at their activity, respond to their activity, make comments on things they post that are meaningful. See who they're endorsed by. See who else you might be able to talk to as it relates to that. See who they recommend or who they've been recommended by. And then once you've connected with someone, had a conversation, always go to LinkedIn and see if there's an opportunity to connect with them in a meaningful, professional way and continue to drip and develop that part of the relationship. All right. And if that doesn't work, get in the room. Okay. As you're finding your way into the room through introductions or LinkedIn or whatever else, get in the room. Where do your prospects go? Where do your targets go to get new ideas? Well, if your targets look a lot like your current customers, you could ask them, where do they go to get new ideas? And in fact, you could even ask them, is it appropriate for you to join? So where do they go to get their ideas? Who are the COIs, centers of influence, and advisors? Who do they lean on for decisions? Get in that room, right? What meetings are designed with owners and decision makers in mind? There are great opportunities for networking among other salespeople, and there's ways to make connections in that space. It's typically a different type of meeting where owners and decision makers might be. Make sure you know the difference. What chamber events are they active in, or do they attend? And does it have to be an awards banquet before they attend, or are they looking for some institutional or industry level knowledge or some other types of things? If you can't get in the room, then build a room. And so what I mean by that, at conferences or holding webinars, access to your SMEs, your subject matter experts, getting access to your subject matter experts might be exactly what it takes to put someone in the room. So having an actual plan around where those, what type of room would best serve you, best serve your clients, best serve your prospects. Centers of influence can be strategic partners. So, oh yeah, and once you're in the room, you got to work the room. Don't just being there isn't going to get it, right? So don't let shyness or a strong personality determine how you behave in that moment. Have a plan. Who do you want to meet when you get in that room? How will you approach them? What will your message be, or what will your commercial be? Understand what you fix and how to start the conversation. That's the thing to talk about when you actually get that opportunity to be in the room. Okay, next point, language matters, right? Don't make it easy for them to duck. What I mean by that is, don't say the things that create the auto response. Hey, how's it going? Doing great. How are you? Doing done. Hey, what's going on with your website? It's doing pretty good. Nothing there to go after. Auto response, again, means they don't even have to think. Here's a couple of ideas. Take a look. Tell me what you think, okay? All right, so script it out. Gaining access. Be exact. If not, I almost always see those outbound phone calls devolving to wanting to chat. We're just calling to catch up, see how you're holding up in the current blah, blah, blah. Or a close-ended question, is there anything I can do? Sounds helpful, just really easy to say no, but thanks, right? And by all means, please don't call for a check-in. I mentioned that earlier. People don't have time for a check-in. So often I'll hear a close-ended or a light touch call that sets the salesperson up for a hard stop or a stall with a no thanks, call me later, thanks for calling, but, okay? And again, that well-positioned but, right? Thanks for calling, but no thanks. Start a conversation, a meaningful conversation. It could be in talking with other business owners and talking with other utilities and talking with other operational leaders. I've been hearing X, Y, and Z, ouch, ouch, or ouch. How have you guys been adjusting to that, right? And talking with other operational leaders or other production managers, I'm hearing that they're needing to flex with a lot of shorter runs. How are you guys dealing with that? Sometimes I'm hearing either shorter runs or improved visibility. How are you guys dealing with that? Lately, I've been getting a lot of calls and they're needing more transparency into their customer relationship. How have you guys been adjusting to that? Not have you been adjusting, how have you been adjusting? It starts a conversation. It also makes the assumption that they've been making some kind of adjustment. I just want to know what it is. Be direct, be compassionate, and by the way, be direct. We recognize that we have resources some of our clients don't have. So I'm reaching out to share ... Okay, easy way to get a conversation started. Nothing to do with a check-in at that point. A compelling reason to talk. Here's an example. I'm personally calling to invite you to an online conference to solve X or Y, or to a client summit we're getting ready to hold, or a client forum, right? I'm personally inviting you to a conference that's going to solve X, not just a conference you're having, that's about you. A conference that solves client relationship visibility, a conference that's designed to solve the tricky ins and outs of artificial intelligence as it's moving into business, right? Is that something you've already solved? It's an automatic, it is a close-ended question, but I'm calling to personally invite you is huge. Thank you for that personal invitation and taking the time to do it. To personally invite you to an opportunity that solves X. Is that something you've already solved? Especially when you're pretty darn sure they're going to say, no, we haven't solved it yet, or it's not even on our radar yet. Well, tell me a little bit about that. It's avoiding the automatic response of, nope, we're good. Thanks for calling. Talk to you later, right? The solve could be, a conference to solve customer questioning what's next. It could be the conference to solve how to reorganize production schedules. Whatever those problems are, I want to be clear, it's about the customer's problems you're solving, not about your deliverable. Fill in the blank. What do your customers need to solve for? Here's another example. Help them choose something. And when you're initially starting that conversation, kind of a ring, don't start with how you're doing today. May I tell you why I'm calling you? Decide where we go from there. Right? It's been a while since we've talked, but it made me think of you today. Can I tell you why I'm calling you? You decide where we go from there. Sure. Many of the owners I've been talking to are feeling like they're in one of two stages. They're either deciding whether to adopt a program, or meaning that they're still deciding if there's a business case or a budget for it. Others have already decided they need that type of a program, but now they're trying to figure out how to implement it, and how it's going to affect the rest of their operation. Which stage are you in? I gave you a choice. Are you deciding whether to do something or how to do something? They're going to pick something. Or is it not even on the radar? Well, let's talk about that, okay? In either case, there is a whether to. If they're already decided that they're at the stage of how to do it, they've already decided whether to. I'm hoping your conversation is, so tell me why you decided to do it. What was going on that made you look at that change? Here's one. Help them discover something new. Another way for you all to be able to get a conversation started. It's that auto response is what we're trying to get rid of. Okay. This is a conversation I had. Some of our clients were using during the pandemic interruption. Many of the owners I've been talking to feel like they initially got forced into survival mode. Then they shifted into financial strategies, dealing with loans and programs. And now they're focused on strategies to be effective so they can emerge and leapfrog into projects. Actually taking this time to grow their talent, grow their readiness. What stage do you guys feel like you're in? So if you dissect that, I actually said that other people I'm talking to are in A, B, or C slot. What stage are you guys in? And so it's a situation the prospect is in, not about your deliverable, but what stage do you feel like you're all in right now? That auto response is gone. There's nothing for them to grab on this. They have to answer. Now, that looks a little long for the screen. I'll give you that, but it's not long for their brain if you're rolling that out in a way that's meaningful to them. It builds choices. And again, it's about them. There's no you in here. How are you dealing with that is at the very end. It's not, are you doing this or do you need this or you. That's aggressive language. Okay. Now, here's one. If it's a problem, it costs money. Got it? If there's a problem that you're going to solve, if they have a problem today, it is costing them money. The business acumen I talked about earlier means that you understand where those costs and losses might be showing up, getting buried somewhere in their P&L. But within a few minutes of talking about an issue or inside that conversation, this should be somewhere in your conversation with a decision maker. So, you said you had to scramble for inventory and push out some partial shipments. Where does the money come from to pay for that? Business owners own the budget to solve that issue. Business owners and decision makers own the what did I say before? The reality of living with their costs and losses. They got to deal with those things. Okay. So when they say there's an issue, an easy question that a business owner would ask a business owner, a decision maker would ask a decision maker is, wow, man, where does the money come from to pay for that? I don't know. Well, I think I'd figure that out if I was you. All right, here's another example. If it's been there for more than a year, let's think about that. Any problem that has existed for more than a year in a business, it's in the budget. It's been buried somewhere in the budget, maybe under labor, maybe under payroll, in the payroll area, or under shipping, or under marketing, or in labor, or whatever. Okay. If there's a problem that's existed for more than a year, it's in their budget. So in other words, my question is going to be, wow, so how long do you think you've been budgeting for that? Sometimes business owners or decision makers or operational managers, sometimes an operational manager feels like they had no choices but to throw money or people at the problem. I don't suppose you're feeling that way. These are business owner to business owner conversations, organizational leader to organizational leader discussions. Okay. Here's a couple more. If email is the sandbox of the devil, then you can kind of guess what I think voicemail is. If you choose to leave a voicemail, here's a couple of technique pieces in here. I'm kind of watching my watch. I want to stay inside of our time frame as best I can. Just get a lot I want to share with you. If you're forced to leave a voicemail after 3 attempts, if they're not expecting your call, I would prefer that you make attempts before you start leaving messages. But if it's on a cold call or following up on an expected call, a solid version of your commercial. So again, back to that message, why people choose to talk to you. The reason I'm calling is I wanted to share something I've learned about X. I will call you, pick a day. I will call you tomorrow at 2:30. If there's a better time or number to reach you, here's my cell. They're still not going to call you back, but they know that you're going to call them tomorrow at 2 o'clock or 2:30. You just got to make sure you're on that call at that time. The second voicemail, not sure if you got my message yesterday. And then again, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into a results-oriented statement. I'll call you tomorrow at 9:30. Pick a different time slot. Okay. In fact, I'll send you a calendar invite for a 15-minute phone call. Feel free to adjust to a time that might work better for your schedule. So again, this is stronger voicemail activity than, hey, call me when you get a chance. I will not likely have the chance. All right, so the art of the voicemail, let's dig into this a bit. Establish what your sales call cadence is. It could be a 7 to 10 point process. What I've learned is that, so 7 to 10 points is the data, the currently accepted data of how many contacts it takes to typically reach a decision maker. If that decision maker is sitting in a C-suite, it could be 12 to 14 attempts or touches that's going to create that communication. The data, that same data would also suggest that most sales reps give up on average after 1.7 times. So well below the work effort of trying. So even if you doubled that and people were trying 4 times, they're still going to fall short. There's a cadence here and understanding it and focusing on it. Okay. So I'm going to click through how this works. Okay. First of all, day 1, you're going to dial 3 times, leave the voicemail I just mentioned, right? With the 4th dial, with the next date and time that you will attempt to call them. On that second day, right? Call as appointed, voicemail plus an email with a very short wanted to share, and both are going to tell you when the next attempt. Just left you a voicemail regarding X. I'm going to call you tomorrow at 2:30. Let me know if there's a better time. So you see that there's 1, 2, 3. I'm already up to 4 touches here, okay? 4, the reds and the greens there. Day 3, call as appointed. Now that day 3, they don't have to be days in sequence. It could be day 1 is on Monday, day 2 is on Thursday, but know, what that looks like. But call as appointed, leave a voicemail, and now send that calendar invitation. That would go to match up. Day 6, somewhere further down the line, so you're several days past. I do believe the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday pick up on the following Tuesday. Call and opt out to a human. Most people still have a 0 pound or the ability to get to a human. There are fewer receptionists, but there are still team leads and folks that do answer phone calls. But I had on my calendar to call Dave today at or Miss Johnson today. I don't suppose she's available, or I had on my calendar to call her at 2 o'clock. Truthful statement because it was on my calendar. The voicemail if you're put through to no answer, okay? Day 8, now we're sending an email with a few points, and in less than 5 minutes, we can probably get to the bottom of X. Again, the problems that you solved. If you've already solved this, let me know. Otherwise, I'll call you, fill in the blank with the date and time. There's a lot of touches in here, okay? But this is what it takes. Day 12, now I'm 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 business weeks in. Call with a voicemail and what your next attempt will be. And then in the future, drop some white papers, thought this would be of interest to you. But that cadence is going to come from you inspecting the activities of your calls and what's happening. So some kind of a CRM or a very well-defined spreadsheet that would tell you when your being effective, what time of day to call, what's happening in those messages. Please don't wing it. All right. Oh, and then that future, also engage with their LinkedIn activity. Very good. Okay. Here we go. Danger, 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 right? If you find yourself getting sent away from the decision maker, likely it's because it's a result of the conversation and the questions that were presented. So if you're in front of a decision maker, you say something and they are like, yeah, go talk to so-and-so, clearly downhill. Likely it is probably the conversation didn't put you in the right stance with that decision maker or the questions that might have been presented. Find a way back. Okay, we're going to talk about how that works. So explore, I've got a couple more pieces here and then we'll wind this up. Explore what they like you to determine with the other person. So I'll go talk to Miss Jones. Tell me what you'd like me to determine in my conversation with her. Determine with them and also explore, is it safe to assume that if I can't determine that with Miss Jones, that this comes off your radar? You wouldn't believe how often a decision maker would say, well, no, not necessarily. Tell me why. I'm going to ask whether that person I'm being sent to actually holds a veto card on any kind of changes that might be made. What would happen as an outcome of that meeting? When would you and I sit and talk about that? Set the expectations and an appointment to discuss the results of the call or the conversation they're asking you to have. If there's no way back and the decision hasn't been 100% delegated, the deal's over. Okay. All right. Regardless of where you start, the interview for the issue and what it's affecting. What is being affected leads up the chain of command, not down. Okay. The issues are going up the chain, not down. What happens if the problem continues? That could be at any level in the organization. What happens if it continues? I'm going up the chain. What have they done to try to actually solve this up to now? Now we know it didn't work. Are you the first person to recognize this, or has it been part of internal discussions? Are we asking those questions? Treat everybody as if they're a decision maker. They are deciding whether you can move forward. Ask the questions. Depending on their role, they probably have exposure to the major initiatives or priorities, the big projects, the things that need to reduce costs. They know what the board is stressing over. So if you were me, ... how would you handle this? If you were me, when do you think would be the best time to reach out to them? And so those are some ways to gain more access to decision makers or move through that chain of command that is necessary, those gatekeepers. The person that owns the problem may not own the budget. Start the decision-making process early. If you don't mind me asking, this is very first conversation. If they're looking at exploring this with you, if you don't mind me asking, who else typically involved when you're making a decision that affects blank? Not make decisions that affect blank, that affect profitability, affect production, affect your all's marketing strategies. Who is typically involved when you're making that type of a decision? Are they aware of this conversation or the issue or whatever, right? Are they aware of this, or would this be new news? Two great questions to ask very early on when you're moving toward a higher level or within an organization's decision maker. So again, once you have it, don't lose it. All appointments or meetings end with the next action scheduled. That's a way to stay in front of decision makers or know your pathway to them. If they say, well, call me next Tuesday, my next question is, what do you want me to do? Well, Tuesday at 9 o'clock, we're going to have an appointed time. Please don't make it just next Tuesday. But if I'm going to call you Tuesday at 9 o'clock, what do you want me to do if I get your voicemail? With everything else you have going on, is there any reason we won't be able to get that information by Monday? Let's suppose that the action was, would it make sense for us to schedule that with a video call for 2 o'clock on Wednesday? I'll send you the link when we get off this call. Very controlled responses. They still have ultimate control, but having control and a purpose behind every meeting. Every next item should be getting scheduled. What do you want me to do if I get your voicemail? Boy, you wouldn't believe that people are like, leave me a message. Well, if I had an appointment to talk to you at 2 o'clock, 9 o'clock, if that was an appointment, I'd like to think I'm not going to get their voicemail. So what do you want me to do if I get a voicemail during our, when I'm reaching out to you for this appointment? Okay. All right. I don't think I jumped anything there. All right. Courage and skill. Here we go. Finishing up here. Courage to know that we have more prospects in terms of that we have more prospects than our prospects have people that can do the work at our caliber. This is a humble belief that I hold to help you with the mental toughness. In other words, there are more people out there with the problems you solve than there are people that do and solve at your level. You have more prospects than they have solutions, okay? The skills to own here is that we have to understand who buys from us, why they buy from us, and the impact of the issues that they're dealing with, the impact of the issues they have are creating for them. We have to be able to communicate at that level. So courage and skill goes a long way to being effective and being in front of decision makers. All right, so here's your final notes for this session. Right now, my opportunity is, okay, based on this conversation, listening to this, this presentation, my opportunity to beginning now is what? Fill in the blank for yourself. And then look at it. Why is that important? If I don't take that opportunity, I will experience, right, continual not getting in front of decision makers, or a shortfall in my sales forecast, or missing opportunities to get into a specific company. If I don't do that, I will experience fill in that blank. And then what resources do I need to accomplish this? And that might be additional training internally around the business case of why people buy from you. It could be some other technical information you might need. It might be a budget for some marketing activities. But those are some of the keys I'd like you all to see. David, I don't know if there were any particular questions or if we want to wind up. Let's see what this is going to do. There we go. There's my contact information. Me and my team of other coaches would be happy to answer any questions. If you're hitting a wall, there's our phone numbers. Please reach out and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So that cleans us up, David.
Okay, that was awesome. That was a lot, Amy.
It was a lot. I'm exhausted.
Yeah. So, you know, some of these statements that you use, you know, these opening lines, I mean, some of them were just absolutely brilliant. And I was being sold by them, you know, just on the screen, you know. So, you know, my question is, you know, I've seen these before or something similar, and it's great when you're, you know, in your own office and you read this and you think, oh, I need to do that. But then when you get out in the field at in an event, I mean, how do you remember all this stuff? How do you get good? Is there a technique or
pick one or two and stick to it? And then next week you add one or two, and then you have four, and then you add one more, and you might have five. But find out what language is comfortable for you. You know, if you get to go back and review this, find the concept that's buried in the way I say it, and then build something that's comfortable in your language. But just know if you're talking about your business, your features, your benefits, you're really not talking to a decision maker. You're talking to somebody that's receiving an ad from you. So,
yeah, this was great.
Thanks.
Well, Amy, thank you so much. I don't really see any questions today. We've kind of threw a bunch out there. So I encourage everybody, if you want to explore this further, I mean, feel free to reach out to Amy. And she is a great resource, super experts, helped a ton of people. So don't be shy. She's really great to work with.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And we'll send everyone a replay. And don't forget to look at the chat and check out our survey. And if you have any topics that you'd like that I haven't really covered here in the past 2 years, go ahead and let me know. I'd be happy to find an expert for us in that. So, Amy, you'll be back again soon.
Great.
I really appreciate it. So have a great Wednesday. Thank you again, Amy.
All right. You're very welcome. Good luck, everybody. And
Thanks.
go make those decisions. Find out what kind of business you want to grow.
Yep. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. At the Kentucky SBDC, we know small businesses are the heart of our economy. That's why our goal is to help business owners start, grow, and succeed in Kentucky. Find out more about how our no-cost business coaching, training, and resources can help your business. Visit us at KentuckySBDC.com.